Today, I'm going to talk to you about your interview because it rewards the very type of person that you're most likely trying to avoid. You know, the bullshitters. Welcome to Let's Get Rash. This is the podcast that says what your boss won't and what your employees wish they could. Work sucks today because leadership sucks and no one wants to say it out loud. I'm Jessica, a former insider turned leadership coach and the author of Let's Get Rash about leadership. I'm not here to be nice, I'm here to be real. Let's get rash about it. Hello, and welcome to episode 13. In the last episode, I talked about how to write your job listing and where to post it. At the end, I poked a little bit of fun at the true reality of hiring, which often comes down to gut feelings and judgment. A lot of times, those judgments are actually the main factor in deciding who gets hired. So in this episode, we're talking about the interview. It's all about the interview and how to conduct them where you can actually learn about the person sitting in front of you. I don't want to veer off track too much, but I do have a question for you, and there is a point to this. Do you know what a right-to-work state is? Most people will say something like, yeah, that's a state where the employer can fire you for no reason, or they don't have to offer you breaks, or... Well, that's actually wrong. A right-to-work state has nothing to do with that. A right-to-work state just means that you can't be forced to join a union, or you can't be fired for refusing to join a union. It has nothing to do with firing, hiring, none of that. What most people are mixing that up with is an at-will state. Employers in at-will states, well, they can fire an employee without giving a reason. They can change job duties, schedules, or pay within legal limits. They can lay someone off without warning. And in return, employees in at-will states, they can quit at any time. They can quit without giving any notice. Now, there are some important exceptions when it comes to at-will states. Employers cannot fire someone for any illegal reasons. Employers cannot fire anyone in the name of retaliation. They also can't fire people for taking protected leave, like the Family and Medical Leave Act. See, at-will employment can also be overridden if there's like an employee contract, a union agreement, certain written company promises or policies. And the reason I'm bringing this up is a few reasons, but the one main reason is that I hear employers, especially the risk-adverse ones, they'll say things like, well, I can't fire so-and-so because my state's not a right-to-work state. Okay, you mean an at-will state? And do you know how many states in the United States are at-will states? 49. That's right, 49. Technically 50, Montana is the only state with some guardrails around at-will employment, but the rest of the country, fully at-will. So if you happen to live in one of those 49 states outside of Montana, congratulations, you are actually in an at-will state. Now, you might be wondering, if employers can fire people at will, why are some of them losing lawsuits? And the truth is, those employers are usually getting in their own way. A lot of lawsuits happen because the company violated one of the things I mentioned earlier, like discrimination, retaliation, or their own company policies. Basically, employers aren't losing lawsuits because at-will doesn't protect them. They're losing because they're tripping over the rules they're supposed to be following or their very own. A simple hack to combating a lawsuit would be documentation. If you're firing someone for an attendance issue, do you have a paper trail or counseling statements to support that this has been an ongoing issue in the past? Can the person being fired prove that you have allowed this behavior with other employees and that you're just simply targeting them? See, we're going to go further into at-will employment in a future episode, but it's an important discussion, especially pertaining to hiring, because employers have become so risk-adverse that they're treating the hiring process like the Cuban Missile Crisis. They are so scared to invite the wrong person in, like they're going to be stuck with a squatter forever. Seriously, employers put more thought into picking the right person than most people put into buying a house, or picking their kids' daycare, or hell, even adopting a child. Hiring the wrong person, yes, that can be expensive, I know, and turnover is not ideal. But ironically, most of the costs associated with turnover are your hiring process. Anyway, if it doesn't work out with your new hire, release them. Get rid of them. Let's get into the real issue, why employers are interviewing the wrong way. Now, I do realize that this is going to contradict everything you've ever been told about how to interview, but first, I want you to think about the history of interviewing, the evolution of the interview process, the journey of interviewing. Tech giants sold small businesses on trendy hiring practices back in the 90s. Those same practices, those companies have already ditched. Now those leftovers are still floating around like a designer purse at a thrift store, and we're still picking them up 30 years later thinking that we've struck gold. Why? Back in the 90s, we didn't know who these tech giants were, but that's never stopped us from blindly following anyone with money. We just put some D-bag in a private jet and suddenly he's a genius. Fast forward to today, if we're still taking cues from tech billionaires, do you really think that Sam Altman or Elon Musk are the gold standard for reading people in an interview? Are those the folks that you want modeling human connection? Come on. But if that's your bar, no problem. I've got a helicopter parked out front ready to run all my errands after this. Now am I credible? So let's get into it. What interview style could we do to make applicants clam up and regurgitate bullshit they've rehearsed online? I know. We should invite everyone to attend from the company. Yeah, you're involving way too many people in the interview. This adds chaos because now multiple interviews happen just so everyone can get their peek of the applicant. This method never allows you to truly get to know the person that you're interviewing. Nothing is more intimidating for a job seeker than answering stupid questions while 6 people stare at them waiting for their turn to play big shot. There's also a certain self-importance that comes out in some of these folks when they're invited to participate as an interviewer. I'm not saying that everyone does this, but I've seen it enough that I think it needs to be mentioned. See, these people will walk in, clipboards in hand, strutting around like they've been given the keys to the kingdom for a few minutes. It's kind of gross. I personally loathe interviews, not just as an interviewee, but also as an interviewer. There's nothing worse than being in the middle of your workday, handling a bunch of tasks, and getting interrupted to go conduct an interview. There's always someone on the board who loves to hear themselves talk. So an interview that should take 20 or 30 minutes will drag on for an hour, even with a candidate that we all know is not going to get this job. Panel interviews are a disaster. You're not learning anything. You're just intimidating people. Think about every crime show that you watch. When have you ever seen 6 detectives come in and question one person? They don't. It's 1, maybe 2, because the second that the person feels overwhelmed, they will shut down. These board interviews, they tend to reward candidates who are terrific public speakers, and while that might be a skill that you maybe are looking for, most employers are not. I hate to stereotype, but most confident, outgoing, extroverted people, the life of the party types, the ones who can stand on a stage without their hands shaking, well, they aren't usually super organized, routined, or methodical. So if you're looking for a detail-oriented planner type person, maybe the candidate who struggles a little in your board interview deserves a second look. See, the point I'm making is that board or panel interviews do exactly the opposite of what you're trying to achieve. Because of this, interviews have become cold, sterile, and an intimidating environment, the exact opposite of what you need if your goal is to actually get real information about a candidate. So ditch the panel. For the interview, 1 person, maybe 2, max. If everyone and their dog insists on participating, then record it if absolutely necessary. But make sure that, depending on your state, you get consent from the applicant. Just loosen up a little bit. Take it down a notch, or 12. Invite the applicant in. Offer them something to drink. Hey, would you like some coffee, tea, soda, water, whatever? This small gesture will signal that it's just a casual conversation. They can relax just a little bit. Before the interview, send them everything that you would say about the company in an email beforehand. That way you're not repeating yourself in every interview, hogging airtime about the company. Plus, this gives the applicant time to prepare some thoughtful questions. All right, the next tip. 1 and done. Anything beyond an in-person personalized interview is excessive. It's unnecessary. And, truth be told, it's a red flag. If you need 3 rounds to figure out if someone can do the job, what are you even doing? You're not gathering insight, you're dragging out a decision that you are too afraid to make. All those extra interviews, all they do is turn candidates into actors. Round 2, they've adjusted. Round 3, they've perfected the script. So congratulations, you're not hiring a person, you're hiring a performance. And those top candidates, well, they're not waiting around for a 4th interview. They've already moved on. Next tip, virtual interviews. Nope, absolutely not. Unless there is a distance issue, virtual interviews are terrible. If you're in the same town, do not perform a virtual interview. virtual interviews strip away any chance for real connection. The energy is always flat. Both sides are barely invested, and the experience has no business being normalized, ever. Here's a personal story. I did an interview with an owner who didn't even turn his camera on. He couldn't be bothered to even do that. So there I was, sitting there like an idiot, staring at a black screen, looking at myself. I actually took that job, but I quit literally a week later because of that guy. That first impression, the interview, he made it pretty clear that he thought he was above me. I should have followed my initial gut feeling through that interview, and sure enough, that's exactly how it played out. So feel free to judge me if you need to, but this guy had already gone through about 10 people in less than a year. I'm not someone who gets easily offended, and I struggle sometimes on how to say all of this here, but there are just certain things that can make a person feel insignificant. In general, we're just lacking basic courtesy everywhere. You know what I mean? The next tip. Interviews today are painfully formal and boring. Everyone is acting like they're stuck in some weird role-playing scenario where conversations just go to die. It's icky, it's gross, it's fake, and it's forced. And remember, it's only rewarding the actors. The ones who answer those overused questions the right way, the polished professional job hoppers who have racked up more interviews than actual accomplishments, yeah, well, they know exactly what to say to get hired. And then they'll spend the next 3 months making you regret it. So look, if you want someone who's already calculated their next raise before remembering their own coworkers' names, great. Keep everything the way it is. I'm not really sure why we put so much value on someone's ability to spit out rehearsed answers and talk like a politician. Unless you're hiring a governor, let's lose those questions. Because this model, it's a joke. See, you need to build an environment where the applicant feels comfortable, where they'll let their guard down and they'll show you the real them. Let's talk about those stupid questions. Let's hit the first one, my favorite, the gotcha nonsense. This has to be the dumbest part of any interview. Gotcha. Questions like, how would you describe the color yellow to a blind person? Or, what liquor best describes you and why? How many golf balls can fit in a Humvee? If you were shrunk to the size of a pencil and put in a blender, how would you get out? How fun. What a thought-provoking question. I know what you're thinking. Jessica, these questions test creativity and they tell us how people think on their feet. No. What they actually do is make the applicant feel degraded. The best word I can use to describe the feeling that runs through your body when someone asks you one of those dumb questions is patronized. Here's a little history lesson for you. Microsoft and Google, they pushed this nonsense to us in the 90s and they told us it was a great idea. That's how they were conducting their interviews. And in case you've been living in a cave, the only advice Bill Gates should be sharing is how to get away with being a pervert. Yeah, I said it. See, around 2013, Microsoft and Google both stopped asking these questions. Google even admitted, they said, these questions really aren't very productive for job performance, so we're ditching it. Wow, what a shocker. But here we are all, still doing it. Well, billionaires told us to do it. See, that sheep mentality in the business world, it is alive and well. So just to recap, dump the gotcha questions. The next question you need to take off is, what are your goals? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? This is probably one of the most useless interview questions that you could ask. Think about it. What answer are you actually hoping for here? Sure, it can be useful in some ways, but let's break it down. Here's what I've seen as an interviewer. If an applicant says to me, in 5 years, I'm going to be a nurse. I'm finishing school in 2 years, so my long-term goal is nursing. Well, this isn't a hospital, so what I hear is short-term hire. Great information for us to use so we don't hire this person, but what my coworker hears, my coworker will hear the same answer and they go, wow, they're really driven. Yeah, we should hire them. They're driven. Yeah, they're going to drive right out of our workplace, dummy. If someone says, I want to start my own business. Yeah, they're driven, but they're also going to drive their own business on your dime. So unless you're using those questions to help eliminate people, great, keep doing them. But most people are impressed by those answers. Now, maybe a better answer to something like that is, in 5 years, I'd love to be leading projects that help this company grow. Sure, that's a win-win for both the candidate and the employer. But if I'm going to be direct and get a little rash with you about this, the answers are always rehearsed. They're practiced. For most job seekers right now, the reality is pretty simple. Their goal is to delete their Indeed app and close their LinkedIn page forever. That's it. That's the goal. The next question, what's your greatest weakness? Let me go ahead and answer this on behalf of all applicants. I'm not proud of this, but I'm a perfectionist. But I've really learned to prioritize big picture deadlines first and review the details at the end of the day to stay efficient. I can just be too detail oriented. Excuse me while I throw up a little bit. Isn't that answer boring all of us by now? What exactly are you expecting here? What's your greatest weakness? I can only pick one? Well, if I'm being honest, I'm a pathological liar, I hate most people, and I'm never on time for anything. Also, my work ethic sucks. How's that? Oh, God, thank God we asked that question. Now we're all able to dodge a bullet here. Stop asking it. No one's ever going to tell you their greatest weakness. Ever. The next question is, why should we hire you? Now, I don't actually hate this question. In fact, I kind of like it. What I hate is the answer that's always expected. The expected answer is lame, it's cheesy, and frankly, it's manipulative. It usually goes something like this. I've been following your company for years, and I have to say that I'm genuinely in awe. Your mission, the way your leadership inspires people, and your recent growth, it just blows me away. The fact that you give back to the community on top of that, honestly, it makes me want to jump in and be a part of this journey. See, the truth is, most people haven't even heard of your company until they were summoned for this interview. As I've mentioned several times, job seekers are applying everywhere. Even the most organized person can't remember what they've applied for or what they haven't. Now, let me tell you, as an interviewer, what I like to hear from a candidate. Why should we hire you? I'm going to be honest with you. I work super hard. I worked my entire life, and this job would just be a dream come true for me. I don't call in sick. I show up ready to give 110% every single day. No mood or personal challenge will ever affect my work. When I commit, I fully commit, and I can start as soon as possible. I really need this job. Can someone tell me why that is not an acceptable answer? When I was 25, I applied for an admin role within the fire department. I really wanted this job. I knew all the typical questions that they couldn't ask, but I had no way of reading the 6 women on my panel. So when they asked me that question, this was my answer. I said something like, although I'm young, I'm really unique, I'm very responsible, I have great respect for public safety, and I have great credit. I don't have kids, so I have no excuses not to show up on time or be dependable. See, now I thought that would be helpful information. They did not think so. In fact, one of the board members asked me in a real bitchy tone, she goes, what does not having kids have to do with dependability? Then she volunteered that she had kids and asked me if I thought that was a problem. Well, clearly I had offended her, and surprise, I did not get that job. For the record, I'm not saying that kids versus no kids proves anything about dependability. I was just trying to stand out. Personally, I'm kind of dorky. My job was my life. I'll drop anything for it. That's all I was trying to explain, but whatever. Let's talk about the only question that actually matters, and it's tell me about yourself. Now, I do know that most interviewers do ask this, but the problem is that it usually falls flat. More often than not, the interviewee is interrupted by the interviewer, which is a massive misuse of this question. A true professional probably won't give you much at first when you ask this, but here's the trick. Keep it going. Ask questions about what they're saying. Encourage less professionalism. Push them out of that autopilot and let the conversation breathe. Tell them about yourself a little bit. If there's something you want to know about them, you go first. Once you feel comfortable, they might let you see 50% more of who they really are. Now, if you have specific job-related questions, I know no one's going to like this, but send them in advance. I know that goes against all the rules, but why not? Hiring managers often act like they're guardians of nuclear codes. It's really not that deep. Plus, with this method, it'll allow you to see if the candidates cared enough to even prepare. It's probably not a shock to you if you know me personally or you've listened to any of these episodes that I am not someone who has ever excelled in a job interview. I'll admit it, I am horrible at them. A lot, if not most of my resistance to these interviews comes from the fact that they just feel so fake. They're so insincere. My whole life I've had this direct tone, this presence with this added perk of having a resting bitch face. First impressions? Yeah, I typically rub people the wrong way. I'm aware of it, and I'll fake the funk through an interview and then shower afterwards to rinse the fakeness off of my soul. But does it really have to be that way? Oh, and even though I said to loosen up in the interview, that doesn't mean the dress code goes out the window. See, you should always expect professional appearance from an applicant. I actually didn't know this. This was a new thing I learned when I was researching my book. Did you know that there are a lot of employers who are offended when people dress too professionally for a job interview? Job seekers are told to go research the company to determine how professionally they should dress. For example, if the workplace is casual, they're told to wear nice jeans and collared shirts. This is probably the worst advice ever. It doesn't matter what the role is. Dressing professionally should always be the standard. Okay. Next, references. Why? Why are we still doing this? It's so hilarious to me that we've abandoned all the parts of the traditional hiring process that actually worked, and then we kept the dumbest part, references. Employers are still asking for 4 people who will sing your praises. And yes, it's unbelievably easy to manipulate this. Even if you do think that you're calling the applicant's former boss, hey, Uncle Ted, can you pretend to be my boss if the company calls? Huh, of course, I got you. Some bigger companies have streamlined references into automated surveys that are complicated but still ridiculously easy to game. Anyone can set up a free email account. Now, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't do that, and I'm not recommending anyone else do that, but what I am saying is that references are not effective, so ditch them. A few last thoughts before we wrap up here. Please stop with the overqualified nonsense. Most people hear that and think that you are either A, discriminating against an older applicant, or B, you're threatened by them. I know some of you think this sounds like a compliment, but it's not, and maybe you're thinking this is an easy way to let someone down. If someone has applied and you listed the pay correctly, and they know what they're signing up for, instead of assuming that they'll bounce or get bored, ask yourself this. What can they bring to your team? Maybe they'll raise your standards. Maybe they'll mentor others. Or maybe they'll bring the calm and clarity that you've been lacking. See, look, hiring has just become a war. Both sides are heading into battle with garbage intel, and they're ignoring instincts and common sense. Job seekers are being trained with TikTok tips and LinkedIn hacks. They memorize power words, fake passion, spit out scripted answers, follow up, but not too much. And by the time they land the job, they're already burnt out. Employers, you guys are trapped with outdated tactics. Employers are posting meaningless job ads, obsessing over red flags, ghosting candidates, keeping everything robotic, sterile, and cold, and then scratching their heads at the applicant pool. It's a battlefield where both sides are being led by generals who have no clue of what they're doing. So, lay the weapons down, show up as a human. I go much deeper into all of this, and I have some other tips, too, that I didn't say here today that are in the book. You can go enter to win a free copy at rashlead.com/free. And give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, mad face, happy face, whatever. Let me know what you think. Tune in next time as we're going to go over the onboarding process. Thanks, and have a great day. Oh, sorry, this is a real page turner. Hey, I'm Jessica Rash, and I just wrote a book. It's called Let's Get Rash About Leadership. It's a great read for anyone, whether you're in leadership or an employee. I'm giving away a free copy. Just go to rashlead.com/book and enter to win. Don't miss your chance to grab it.